9 years ago, India rewrote its indirect tax system. It scrapped the maze of central and state taxes and replaced them with one unified indirect tax system, the GST. The promise was simple: one nation, one tax. The reality? It's been a journey of constant course correction. Today, GST has become the government's biggest source of indirect tax revenue. Collections touched a record 2.43 trillion rupees in April 2026, while May collections stood at 1.94 trillion rupees, showing the system has matured into a robust revenue engine. But has the reform truly lived up to the promise it made?
The fundamental objective here was to transform indirect taxation by replacing a fragmented system of multiple central and state levies with a destination based value added tax. So, when you look at things in this kind of a perspective, historical and comparative perspective, you will find that there have been very significant achievements. If you look at one of the most important metric of any kind of a tax measure is the revenue collection.
If there's one thing both supporters and critics agree on, it's this: GST has fundamentally changed India's tax architecture. But the reform wasn't only about increasing tax collections, it was also about making it easier for businesses to operate. So, from a compliance perspective, how different is doing business today compared with the pre-GST era?
I think GST has brought a very different compliance grid. GST has made everything digitalized. Pre-GST era, we had first of all different legislation which required a compliance. Post-GST era, since its implementation, gradually we have digitalized most of the compliances. So one, we file only one return. We don't file a separate returns for separate law. There is one law which is subsuming all the indirect taxes, which is GST. So we file one return. We file all the digital data. And most importantly, we also have the linkage now of the returns which are filed by us as an assessee with my customers and also with my suppliers.
Before GST, businesses dealt with multiple indirect taxes, separate returns, and different state level regulations. Today, compliance is largely digital. Returns are linked, invoices are matched, and tax authorities increasingly rely on data analytics. But has technology actually made compliance easier?
It has to be put it in perspective. I would personally feel it has become more easier than the rigorous. But as any transformation, any transition will have some initial teething issues. So that is what we had. In last 9 years, most of the teething issues have got resolved. And it is an evolving era. Even the digitalization, we have been evolving in terms of our filing of returns and so on and so forth. So that's why we are finding it some difficulty in compliance. But in my view, to put it in a perspective, it is more easier than the rigorous as it was under the old regime.
Another promise of GST was to erase tax barriers between states and create a genuine common market. Has India achieved that goal?
I say tensions have lessened a little bit, but tensions, given the nature of financial relations, with the devolution of taxes between the center and the states, these tensions continue. I was coming to the flip side of the center-state relations. So rate complexity, litigation about classification, place of supply, valuation, input tax credit, anti-profiting refunds, working capital pressures, which particularly hit the MSMEs. So all these issues have been looked at by the GST Council, but major issues include GST compensation mechanisms. There is some delay, especially during the pandemic. There was a great delay. Now, of course, those delays have come down. Borrowing agreements to compensate for revenue shortfalls. So there has been some kind of a divergence there. Disagreements over compensation says states have increasingly voiced their concerns about shrinking fiscal autonomy and increasing dependence on GST councils. So there are areas of significant differences between the center and the states.
The GST Council itself was designed as an experiment in cooperative federalism. Yet, disagreements over compensation, revenue sharing, and fiscal autonomy have often brought the center and states to the negotiating table. 9 years later, where does that relationship stand? For businesses, though, the bigger concern is operational. While compliance has become more digital, Many companies, especially MSMEs, say challenges remain. GST has also undergone continuous fine tuning over the past 9 years. Rates have been rationalized, rules have evolved, and technology has improved. But does this constant evolution create certainty or confusion?
I think we should again keep this in mind that most of these changes which have been carried out in GST law is to ease out some of the compliances and to give some certainty.
After 9 years, perhaps the debate is no longer about whether India needed GST. It's about what the next phase should look like.
Instead of making a lofty announcement, I would suggest that maybe all these issues need a much more careful and comprehensive examination. And when there is some kind of a broad consensus among all stakeholders, then possibly these measures could be rolled out, which would be far more successful than something like an off the cuff measure. That is my submission.
I think there are few changes that I would recommend. First is the refund mechanism for inverted duty structure needs to be streamlined. Second, we have a scenario where one state has an accumulation, one state is making payment. Ultimately, we wanted to have one nation, one tax. Why are we still getting that divided into 32 states? At least instead of central GST, it should be fungible enough. One can transfer the credit from one state account to other state account. Why are we still creating 32 different zones while it is one nation that we ultimately endeavor to be? Third, the most important is the deemed supply of services. There are many transactions between the related parties, even though they have been done without consideration, they are treated as a deemed supply. So, such as using the brand, the corporate guarantees, using the know-how, using the common IT systems, and so on and so forth. All of these are unnecessarily getting into a lot of disputes and litigation. And that has to be addressed sooner, because that is something which is a real pain area for most of the organizations today.
In its 10th year, GST is now the foundation of India's indirect tax system. The challenge now is to make the system simpler, fairer, and better suited for the decade ahead. Follow Business Standard for more such stories.